there's no such thing as wrong. If you're doing no harm to anyone else or to yourself, you can explore and feel safe and non-committal. There is no, just because you do something doesn't mean it's forever. There's no commitment when it comes to your sexual preferences or sexual identity. It can ebb and flow like a river, and trust yourself.
All right, hello everybody. This is Sex Positivity Unfiltered, where we talk about sex and we are not polite about it. My name is Lyndsey Murray.
And I'm Denise Stratton.
And today we have a very special guest with us, Sorcha Butterly. She actually is a really good friend of mine, and we are so excited to have her on the podcast because today we're going to be talking about dating as a bisexual woman. And I think she's got some great personal life experience that we think is very important for this podcast and for the topic that we're covering. And I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this episode. This episode should be coming out in March, which is Women's History Month. So I thought it'd be really good to give you guys like a perspective on the same questions, but from a lesbian woman, bisexual woman, and a straight woman. So you kind of get a little bit of both. So the topics we plan on covering today is basically discovering the sexuality and how the experience with the queer community went. We're also going to cover the differences of dating men versus women, and then the unique challenges and experience of just being bisexual, you know, because we have someone here who has experienced that full-heartedly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start us off. I mean, we'll kind of like take turns asking questions,
Yeah.
but it's very conversational too. I mean, we'll be talking right
Chime
there
in
with
with
you.
our
Yeah.
stuff, too.
I do have a question for you though that kind of will lead me into my first question. But I am curious to hear your experience of dating both men and women, like how it started. Did you start dating men or like I'm saying men or boys because maybe you were like in high school or something, but did you start dating like men and boys first or women and girls first, or kind of how did that
How did I figure it out?
Yeah, I would love to hear that story.
I did date men first, or people of the male gender.
How old are you when you first start, like your first boyfriend?
I mean, in
first, like actual, not like
probably
a
like
month.
Yeah, like a serious, actual relationship.
Actual relationship.
I was probably like 14, 15.
Okay.
Yeah. That's pretty
Yeah.
common.
And I've always gravitated to men that were either like super hyper masculine, or that were very like in touch with their own emotions and very soft and approachable. And once I kind of got, I'm still not over it, but I kind of over dating those hyper masculine men because it hides a lot of insecurity.
Yeah.
And the men that were more in touch with their emotions and feelings, I was like, oh, this is good. And then I realized men are still quite similar, no matter how they present themselves. And that's just based on how they're raised or society. But the first time I realized that I was interested in women, I was just curious. And that probably started around the same time. I think I broke up with one of my high school boyfriends, and I was at a pool party.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
girl. I mean, expand.
Yeah.
Expand. I'm interested.
I was at a pool party, and we were in the hot tub, and I don't know if you can see, but I have a very big chest. And I was getting a lot of attention from men who were in the hot tub, and I was interested in all the beautiful women in bikinis. I was like,
okay.
I want to see what's under there. In a polite way, very respectfully, I would love to see what's under there. And I was getting attention from girls and boys, and I was like, I love this. This feels really natural to me to accept this attention.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time I kind of realized it. So,
were you aware at the time that you were feeling an attraction to, or did you just think that maybe, oh, they really pretty, I really like, I want to.
I don't know if I realized that it was actual attraction. That's a good point. Yeah, no, I was just like, and this goes into a whole idea of like the experience as a bisexual woman is sometimes you're told that you just like attention, or that you're being greedy.
Yes.
So that's at that time I didn't know. I was like, I do love attention, don't get me wrong. So that was, I didn't figure it out, that it was attraction, not just like acceptance of positive attention.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
I think most people like attention from people they're attracted to. I think that's just a common experience as a human.
Well, yeah, who does? Like, who's gonna be like, that hot person likes me? Ew. Like,
Yeah,
no, you're gonna
like,
you're gonna eat it up. Yeah.
Right. Even if they're awful, you're like, thank you.
Okay. So I want to kind of circle back to the men with the insecurity. Like you're saying hypermasculine men, those are the ones that you were attracted to the most, but you're starting noticing some insecurities. What were you experiencing?
That they were, I don't think they were very secure with their own identities, whether they were struggling with their own sexuality and choices in their dating. But it was really just that they didn't have their own identity. They didn't have their own
Yeah.
hobbies or goals or ambitions. It was a lot of what they thought they were supposed to do. And that created a lot of anger in a lot of the men that I dated, was that listlessness. They didn't have a path to follow, except for the one that was given to them, and they think they resented it.
Okay.
So,
Which, yeah, happens a lot. Because, like, if, like, the hyper masculine, not just masculine, but, like, the hyper masculinity, right? Of, like, I've got to play football, and I've got to do all the manly things, and I've got to pick this career that is, like, me. You know, like, there's just all these expectations. And then if they ever reach a point where they're like, well, I don't know if I even really, like, want any of this, but they're, like, too afraid to admit it.
how much of this was my choice?
Yeah, that's, like, the insecurity, right? Okay. That makes total sense to me.
So all right, so you're in the pool, you realize these things are happening, you realize you're getting the attraction. Did it take a while from that, I guess, awakening in a way?
Yeah, I think I experimented and explored it for probably until about college. I experimented and explored in safe, which I'm so grateful for, in really safe places. Like between friends, we would explore, like, do we like each other as more than friends? Are we interested in that way? But still being able to remain friends, which I think is the fantastic thing about women, is we were able to have that open, honest communication and find out if that was something that we were interested in.
So this the first person was more of a friend. Did they identify as bisexual as well, or they identify as straight? Y'all were figuring it out together.
Yeah, we're figuring it out together. Absolutely.
Oh, that's girl. That's rare, and that's really awesome.
It was such a beautiful moment too, because we were experimenting, exploring, and then afterwards we were like, oh, absolutely, yeah, there's something here for women. I love you so much. I don't think I'm specifically attracted to you.
Okay,
hey, girl, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I can relate to that. I can relate to that.
And what is up with, I mean, y'all can both kind of answer this more than I could. Like, women, when it's like a female-female relationship, I say relationship, but even if it's like sexual in nature and we're kind of figuring things out, like, I feel like women, like two women together in that kind of experience, it's easier for them to remain friends for a long time, the rest of their lives. Whereas, like, male and female, that shit never, like, I cannot think of anyone that I used to have sex with in my past where I'm like, we can just remain friends. Like, it just never seems to work out that way. I wonder what the big, like, difference is.
I kind of think that it's a lot about shame. That in my experience with men, is that men feel like, they call it post-nut clarity.
Yeah.
And the Madonna, like Madonna thing of, I idolize this person, I have sex with them, and now they're dirty, they're gross, they're a whore.
Oh, shit.
Ignorant lesbian question. I apologize. Post-nut clarity?
You've never heard of post-nut clarity?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna let you explain it, but I'm like, what?
Listen, professor, please take it away.
I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, in my mind, maybe people have like a different answer. But post-nut clarity is kind of like, once the sex has happened, now they decide who you are in their mind, essentially.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like, leading up to it, everything seems so great, and like, you're thinking they're really into you, and then once sex happens, even if it's really great sex, it's like, oh, now you're just this thing that I had
Oh, I
sex
actually
with.
don't like you.
Right, I actually don't like you, but I did leading up to this.
Blinded
And
by horniness.
Yes, essentially.
Or I just wanted my notch in my belt, really. Like, I got the notch, we're good. That's what I'm starting to
The
relate
whole
to.
idea of like conquest.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
I got it.
And now I'm done with it.
Yeah, I don't want it. Like pure little boy energy, right? Of like I wanted that toy because someone else had it or because I didn't have it. And now that I have it, I've played with it for 10 minutes. I'm done.
And I think that's when women start to feel really used, and then the guy's like, well, I never said we were like in a relationship. And it goes back to something we talked about maybe a few weeks ago, but it's like, I never expected a relationship, but can you just respect me? Like, I thought we were, like, we're obviously not friends. We never were friends. I guess maybe that's the big difference of like why it does not seem to go that way.
Because
for
you
men
never
and women.
were.
We never were
'Cause you
friends,
never
but women
were.
can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. I think a lot of attraction for me with women is who they are, not necessarily what they look like, right? It's more about their energy and their spirit and like how they operate through their life and how they handle things is where I like get that attraction. And it is so funny that you said that because it's based in respect.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I just realized that. I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, it's how they operate in their life and handle hard things. And I was like, that is called respect, Sorcha. Like,
Yes.
you respect women. So
how is that different with men? Do you actually go attraction first with men? Like, you're first attracted to them and then
I when it comes to my attraction to men, I am also very masculine in my attraction to men, where I am like possessive and it is about catching and attaining and conquering. And so it's odd.
oh, the huntress. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
At. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always say I've gotten every man that I've ever wanted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're not afraid to go for
Girl.
what you want.
No, not at all.
Hey, good shit. Cheers.
Because and with men, I think when it comes to like serious relationships or actually being interested in sharing a life with men, when you're looking at it that way, it is based around the same thing, but the same like respect and admiration for them as humans,
Okay.
versus like, you know, being out at a club or whatever and seeing someone and going, that'll be mine.
Okay.
By the end of the night, that one will be mine. I've picked it. I've manifested
Girl.
it.
Hey, no, I'm absolutely loving the confidence you have as far as like you're like going after the men you want and everything. So I'm curious, how does that differ whenever you find a woman that you're attracted to? Do you have the same confidence?
No,
You-
no,
okay.
not at all. It's crazy.
Okay.
No, it is crazy. There is someone I actually I think they're amazing and I'm really attracted to them, but I am terrified that obviously I am terrified that I'm not their type, but that never occurs to me with men. And that thought of what if I'm not their type, or what if I'm not gay enough and they don't trust me, or they don't even know, like I don't give off enough like bi girl energy.
Oh yeah.
So it's strange, and I don't have that confidence with women. This particular person is so sweet and stunning and lovely and genuine, and I'm like
Starts twirling. her
Yeah.
hair.
So women are almost like more intimidating.
Oh,
men.
absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
I feel like women I see, because I know my own perspective, and I just assume that that is my base for, if before I know you, that's my base for how you view the world, is like a diluted version of what I see. And I know women to be very perceptive,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We all have like an inherent, and it's intuition.
It
It's
is.
probably, you know, a nature nurture thing. But it's part of your instinct, and you kind of just know, and you know things before you actually are told them. And I'm afraid that they're using that lens on me, and that I'm not, you know, gay enough for them to be like interested in me or date me, or because I haven't had a long-term relationship with a woman. I've only ever had like dating or casual evenings.
Okay,
Yeah.
girl, you do your thing. So when you say dating, you mean like just going out on dates in public?
Yeah.
You never brought a woman home to the family or
No.
anything like that? Or...
My parents know that I also like women,
Okay.
but no, I've never brought a romantic interest home that was a woman.
Okay. Okay.
How was it like? What do your parents think of it? Like when you told them, or when they knew that you were bisexual? Like, how was that?
So unimpressed by the information.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like, well, hopefully you change because men are terrible. Well, the ones you brought home, awful. Like, maybe you should try leaning into that side a little harder. Like,
I know your parents, so I can see, especially your mom being like, Sorcha, you need you need to go and date more women.
Sorcha, maybe give it a try. Maybe give it a try.
The pool you're dating from, I don't know. Maybe we need to switch to the female pool.
Maybe you would be happier. Are you sure you're not? Maybe a little more?
That's great.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
that's
love
awesome.
supportive parents. That's
Full-
actually really awesome.
Full support. They're so funny. I love them so much.
So I do want to expand on the fact that, sometimes you don't feel gay enough, because I see that very common in the bisexual community. So do you ever feel excluded from the queer community at all because you're dating men, or when you're dating men?
You know what? I really don't.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I really don't feel that the like community at large treats us as any less because we like multiple gender identifications. I don't feel that way, but I do know that is a sentiment that is out there.
Yes.
But I feel really loved and accepted by that community, but always as a whole. Before I knew anything about my own preferences, I always felt accepted by that community because I adore that community.
Hey, good.
Yeah.
It's my
Good
people.
Good to hear.
Was always a part of it. My parents are really, diverse and inclusive. And so it was so strange to me to know that people didn't like gay people. I was shook to my core. I was like, but they're just people.
Yeah.
Like, what? And so it had never crossed my mind that there could be any kind of judgment with being bisexual. But I do know that now that can be prevalent depending on how involved you are in the community.
Yeah, girl, biphobia is a thing. Biphobia, and you've been saying a lot with the straight world, but biphobia is huge in the queer community as well. Like, have you ever, the women that you have dated, do any of them identify as lesbian, or they all identify as bisexual? What's
As far as I'm aware, all the women that I have dated have identified as lesbians.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, no, I'm actually very impressed, because typically I even have lesbian friends who refuse to date bisexual women just because they have this insecurity that, well, if they like both genders, then I won't be enough for them.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
Because of that, eventually they're going to leave me for a man. It's usually that insecurity that they have.
Right. This is I can absolutely sympathize with that, because I have felt that way, where that was what the person that I was dating was experiencing. Was, okay, well, when we go out to bars, like, you flirt. And I'm like, we're not exclusive, but I'm not doing it on purpose. That is who I am. Like, people mistake my kindness for flirting all the time. I am just an outgoing, bubbly person. And it makes them really insecure, because if it's a man, then there's so many different things that go through their heads, right? One of my previous partners explained that they're possessive, they were jealous, but it was a man, and they were like, I couldn't even fight him off. Like, I couldn't beat him up. Yeah. Like, I couldn't beat them up if I wanted to. How am I supposed to protect you? I'm like, that's not your job.
That is, yeah. Well, okay, so the women that you do date, do you typically go for a more masculine woman? Do you typically also you do like the more masks? Okay, soft masks in general.
Because I don't feel like I get to live in my feminine energy a lot. To be fair,
okay,
I live in my masculine energy quite a bit. So I like that space. I like that to be held for me by my partner, where I'm allowed to be soft and sweet and like allow myself to feel that femininity.
Okay. So yeah, I could see that if you're dating more mask women, I will say there is a part of me when I decide to take on the mask role where I feel as if in order to attract a feminine woman, I do have to be somewhat of a protector, or I have to be kind of strong or tough, or I have to be able to hold myself if, they get hit on by a man. I've actually had issues before where, because context about me, I do identify as polyamorous. So for a little while there, I was actually very much in my polyamorous stint, and in polyamory community, you're allowed to date and flirt and do things, with other people. So jealousy was something that I would never express if they're getting hit on, right? Like it doesn't bother me if you hit on my wife. Actually, if you hit on my wife, that kind of boosts my confidence up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're like, that's my wife. Of course you want her.
Obviously.
I know. Too bad. But yeah, so I can understand because I've had issues with women who, because I didn't react, I didn't get upset, or they felt as if I didn't care, or I didn't care if someone else wanted to snatch them up. They weren't important or whatever. So I can kind of relate to the person who is like, well, I can't beat them up for you.
Yeah, I don't want you.
I don't want you to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
I will say like coming from my perspective, I'm looking at like men who say shit like that. Because I've heard that before. I mean, like y'all know my husband Andrew, like I could never imagine him being like, I'm gonna beat that guy up, But if he's so sweet, he would never. But if he did, I would be like, don't though, like a physical fight or whatever is not it. Like we could just leave at any moment if something were to go down. So yeah.
So I have a really good question then for both of you, because you're both feminine. So if you were out with your guy and some other guy disrespected you at the bar or whatever, and maybe your husband, your boyfriend said something, and he ended up getting his ass beat, would you look at him any less?
No, I would not. Because I think if I was like disrespected, I would want my husband to say something. Like if he was like, hey, back the fuck up and don't talk to my wife that way. I mean, that's what I would want him to do. Right?
Honestly, we would have to leave immediately because
right,
it's
exactly.
Happening. It's happening right now.
If that happened, I'd be so turned on that I'd be like, we don't got time for a fight. We got to get home.
We can't go to the hospital right now. We got to go.
We got to go now. Okay. So I would want him to say something, but if he like got beat up or something, no, I would not look at him any less. I would just view him as like, you were standing up for me, and this guy, like, this person who beat you up, like, was an asshole, right? So we just got to get out of here. So to answer your question, no, I wouldn't view him any less.
So basically, you would want your partner to definitely confront the person, and have that confidence and that, I guess, masculinity to actually say something for you on your behalf.
Yeah.
But you don't want them to ever threaten physical violence.
Exactly. That's how I view it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Not unless, and mine is, again, like I said, I'm a cave woman, I guess. I don't know. I don't want you to actually, I do not promote violence of any kind at all. But if it is at that level, because it does depend on what the previous incident was, right?
Yeah.
What happened to me? Was it a conversation? Was it a lewd remark? Did they grope me? Like where did it fall on the scale of unacceptable for me?
Yeah.
And how upset am I in that moment? How unsafe do I feel in that moment? Because then that's your partner is baselining off of that.
That's a really good point, because like if someone groped me and then my husband like punched him in the face, that might be a moment where I'm like, I mean, but you groped me first.
Tit for tat. You touched me.
I know.
He hits
and
you.
Again, not that I'm ever promoting violence, and I genuinely don't think like meeting violence with violence is like the answer.
Never.
But I can also imagine myself in the moment being like, well,
I 100% agree with that, though.
Okay, so just to lay that out there, guys. So the things that you're saying that you kind of expect from your partner, now you can kind of see from a woman's perspective who she's normally not in that role. She feels kind of obligated to compare. So,
Ooh, comparison is the thief of
oh,
joy.
girl.
It really is.
All day,
yes.
every day.
But I get it, and I get it, and that's something that is hard to navigate in those relationships, because there's not I can't do anything about that insecurity. All I can do is, because I want us to have a genuine, authentic relationship, I cannot we can talk about it. I can try to make better habits for myself, but I cannot change fundamentally who I am and how I interact with the world.
Right. Yeah.
So if that is, and that has been a deal breaker many times, is sorry, I feel less than because you are outgoing and bubbly, and it makes me feel insecure, like you could leave me at any moment.
Girl, bye.
And I'm like, here's the thing. I'm going to now, because that is so uncomfortable for me to have made you feel that way.
Yeah.
That was never my intention. And I don't know if that's something that is fixable, because I was just being true to myself. I wasn't trying to hurt you, and I would never want you to feel that way.
And you also can't hide that part of yourself, because people do go that way. They're like, well, I want to make you comfortable, so I'll hide this part of myself. And then it ends up being like kind of miserable, because you're like, well, if I do act the way I normally would when I'm out and it's going to upset them, then it's kind of a slippery slope into like, now there's a lot of tension, and sometimes those conversations are tough, but I think you got to be honest about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did mention how you haven't brought anyone home as far as same sex to your family. Have you ever dated a woman and brought them around your friend group or around, people, loved ones?
I had to think about it for a hot minute. I was like, yeah. And I would actually, this is so strange, but not in America, which is the coolest statement I'll ever make. When I lived in Ireland, yeah.
Hey, I didn't know.
Cool.
That's actually really fucking awesome.
Yeah. And I think that it was just because it was like really natural, because there wasn't any idea of like what or who or how I identify. It was just, that's Sorcha. And she was kissing this guy at the club the other night. Oh, now she's kissing a girl at the club. Oh, okay, cool, whatever. And so it was just
like no big deal.
No big deal.
So you've never experienced, I guess, your friends treating you or your partner differently depending on which gender you bring?
Right? Yeah. No, not in my adult life, for sure.
Good.
So that's been a blessing.
Do you ever feel like you're having to always come out? And what I mean is, like, with women having to say, I'm not only into women, I'm bisexual, and then also with men, like, I'm not straight, I'm also bisexual, like
huge eye roll on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
It's because I think the baseline is always people assume you're straight until you tell them otherwise.
Yeah.
And
unless you're me, I assume you're gay until you tell me otherwise.
There you go.
Apologies, I just think everyone's gay. All right.
I do think everyone's a little bit gay.
Hey, in my
everyone's a little bit gay.
I'm sorry.
No, I hear that.
Yeah, that I do feel like that people assume that I am one or another, and like that they can't live together, or to quantify how straight or how gay I am. And it's so funny because I still do it to myself to this day. Is I'm like, oh, I'm like an 80-20 split.
Okay.
And then I think about it, I'm like, that is so horrific to say out loud.
Oh no, girl, no. Actually, one of my favorite questions that I was ever asked was, can you quantify your sexuality from 0 to, or from heterosexual to homosexual?
We're on the scale.
We're on there. And you would be surprised how many like existential crises like people have like when you ask them that question. And even me, because if someone were to ask me that question, I've always said I'm probably like 95% homo for sure. Because I'm not gonna negate there might be a guy out
Chris
there.
Pine exists.
Maybe. Yeah, there might be a guy. Orlando Bloom actually was for me for
Ooh,
the longest time.
that also is a big gay indicator.
Oh,
Just so you
really?
know.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
If you loved Orlando Bloom, you're a little bit gay.
Okay. Well, hey, stereotype. But yeah. So if there was a guy who really, I would consider giving it a shot. I'd probably go through a little bit of a crisis, but go give it a shot. Yeah.
It's difficult when I am dating a man because they just assume that I'm straight, right? I no longer bring it up. Uh, it does come up eventually, and at first they're really excited about it, about all the possibilities.
Because they
Yeah.
always think it's for them. They're like, ooh, we can have
Yeah.
threesomes now. You're like, well, I didn't say that.
You're right. You and like another guy, call your friends.
Hey, girl, I love that
And they're like,
answer.
no.
Yes.
Every time
Yes.
I'm like, oh, absolutely, I'm so open to explore that option. My one request is that we have you and another guy for our first one, and then all of a sudden
It goes away.
it goes away. I'm like, I had a feeling that would happen.
Oh, I love this. I love the switch.
Yeah.
Switch. Okay.
So they're excited at first, and then
Yeah. Because for whatever reason, in those not in all, but in my relationships, for whatever reason, being bisexual to my partner all of a sudden means that we're not monogamous. Like that,
oh,
you know,
see that
yeah.
experience.
and
Yeah.
it's so strange. I'm like, somehow my sexuality has opened up our relationship to inviting a third person in.
Yeah.
No, regardless of their gender. But how did we skip a whole conversation?
Yeah, people
Mhm.
like to equate sexuality with relationship styles as
Mhm.
well, and I don't know
Yes.
why. I mean, I guess, but just because you're pansexual, you're bisexual, you like multiple genders doesn't mean that you want to date multiple genders at the same time.
And it's so interesting because I think that is the assumption. Like, when you like multiple genders, that means like we could be with multiple people, and it's like, but I can still choose to be monogamous. But what's interesting is like even in like a straight relationship, either one of us could be attracted to multiple people.
Mhm.
Like, I only like men, but I'm like, that doesn't mean you're the only man in the world that I find attractive. You know what I mean? Like, there could be other people, and I'm like, does that like mean that we're going to open up the relationship just because there could be attraction to someone else? But when it's another gender, it's like an automatic.
Mm.
Yeah.
That
It's
is
an interesting jump.
It is a weird jump. And because I can't understand the thought process, I believe that it is just a nothing in between.
Yeah.
There's nothing in between there. They're just like so excited about the possibility. And maybe we figured something else out on that one. But then they realize, as time goes by, they realize, oh no. Now I have everyone to compete with all the time.
All the time.
And I'm now in my heterosexual relationships, now I'm like no longer to be trusted.
Okay.
Because I can't go hang out with my girlfriends. And like,
oh yeah, girl,
Mm.
yes. Okay.
And when it's
understood.
hyper masculinity, there's already that insecurity there.
Yeah.
That's when it starts to come out. Is like, you're like, oh, you're not secure.
yeah, things you
Okay.
didn't worry about before you knew.
You're now very worried.
Now
about.
all of a sudden I've been doing it the whole time. Doing what it is, I don't know, because I'm not. It's such a straight, it takes a really secure person. And that is not something that all of us are capable of doing all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is basically like in your experience, what's most common is the fact that they don't take you serious. Men do not take your sexuality serious at all at the beginning, and then after they start experiencing your flirtatious and your bubbly attitude, then the insecurities start creeping in, and that's when they start taking, oh well, this might be an actual sexuality, and now I'm afraid. Now I'm scared.
And I'm worried. Or even in times where we have had invited a third person in, then afterwards, because we would usually in previous relationships, we would look for someone that we felt was like trustworthy and that would be honest and have communication and that we still could remain like friends with or like loosely acquainted, whatever it may be, whatever was comfortable for my partner at the time. And then I developed friendships quite easily. and then me and that other person would be friends. And then it was, I can't trust. We had fun, and now I don't trust you anymore.
Wow.
And I'm like, you are my partner.
Yeah.
And arguably, usually it's them who initiates the 3-person,
Of course.
because I'm possessive. Well, I'm possessive, and I hate it. I love to be the center of attention. I love to be the one who's like, yay,
Yeah.
I'm having fun. As soon as I am no longer the focal point, I'm like, ooh, I don't know why you like this at all. I don't love this. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm having a good time anymore. So,
So you've had threesomes before.
yeah.
Yeah, and you girls say, because the awkwardness, I was actually mentioning to Lyndsey literally last podcast where I was just like, yeah, in a threesome, to me it's overhyped, because there's always one person who's like not sure what to do or where to put their hands, and then insecurities get in there, and then you're like, well, I mean, they look like they're having fun. Do I need to interrupt?
Yeah.
So I feel you.
Yeah, you're so right. It is such a interesting, like, moment, right? It's hard to navigate,
Yes.
but if you trust the 2 people that you're with, it can be so enjoyable.
Okay.
But afterwards, there's always something in my partner's head of, did you like having sex with the other person more than you like having sex with me? Or you go out for coffee, what do you guys talk about? Do you talk about our relationship? Do you talk about the issues in it?
Wow.
And I'm like,
yeah.
no,
Okay.
I have a full
Post nut
life.
clarity.
Post nut clarity every time. You thought you wanted this. Now you realize it's not all it's cracked up to be.
That's great. Post nut clarity.
We love it.
Mm.
We love
Taking
it.
that
Full
home
circle.
today.
Yes,
love it.
came full circle. Right back around to it. Yep, that's it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, no, I have noticed that. So in the umbrella of coming out, with the bi, straight, and les, there's differences that we all experience. So obviously the straight people, y'all never come out, pretty much, just automatically. You just know that they're straight, or that's the perception. Me, I have to come out typically every day in public, right, to strangers. So usually that's who but I'm constantly coming out. I'm constantly, especially if I'm not in this type of wear, if I'm in my work uniform or whatever, I have to tell people that I'm gay. So that's something that's my experience because I'm a lesbian, but I never have to experience that with dating my partner. When I go on a Tinder or whatever, I go on a date with a woman, I never have to tell her, yeah, I just got to tell you, maybe, just so you're aware, I also am lesbian. Like, that never has to come out. So that is something that is unique to bisexuals, to where no matter who you're dating, male, female, it's a conversation that you are required to have. So we got how kind of men react to it. Do you outwardly, like the first date, tell whoever you're dating, women-wise, that you're bisexual? And it doesn't come up?
I don't release that information unless I feel that that we're gonna move forward, right?
Trust.
Yeah. Because I don't want the date to be over in the first 10 minutes. Like,
So there's that fear of coming out that you do experience, but for dating your partner.
Because I have been on dates where I have brought it up, and it's literally a awkward silence, finish your drink or finish your food or whatever.
Ooh.
And then that's like the date is over. After that point, the vibe goes straight downhill.
Oh, so you date a man. Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Like, yeah, those have not been positive experiences, but I can also understand that's also your preference, that you don't want to date someone who's bisexual, and that's okay. You can have preferences. That is fine.
Yes.
I'm not offended. I'm like, yeah, no, I get it.
But it's just an awkward time if it goes like that.
Yeah. But what am I supposed to, like, should I walk in with like hi, my name is Sorcha, I'm bisexual, and that be the first entry to the date?
Just put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's what you
Honestly,
bisexual.
I do love that. I feel like if I walk into a bar with that shirt on, though, I'm gonna have a lot of conversations.
You're gonna get a lot of attention, girl. You're gonna get a lot of attention. I'm not gonna lie.
I wore a shirt one time I think it was like last year during Pride Month. And it said, kiss whoever the fuck you want. And I did get a lot of attention on that shirt. And what's funny is the attention I got was from like a lot of old people, because we were at a bar. So it was like a mix of like our age and like older people. And so it'd be older people, and they'd be like, what does that shirt say? And they're just like staring at my boobs, like reading my shirt, like, what does that say? And they'd be like, oh. And that'd be it. That'd be the whole exchange. They just walk away, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's the point of the shirt.
That is the point of the shirt.
I love that you were testing people's literacy. I think that's fabulous.
Can you read?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's good. Okay, so I'm gonna bring us back to back to the pool scene and your first experiences. So I want you to kind of take us through your first actual, say if you're comfortable, sexual experience with a woman. Like what were you feeling? Was it a light bulb, or was it awkward?
You know, it's strange because I don't think it was awkward. Did I know what I was doing? Kind of, but it felt really safe. It felt comfortable. Like I could ask questions and like get reassurance, and that was like we were both equal participants.
Oh, good.
Which sometimes in my experience in heterosexual relationships is not the case. Sometimes we are not both like equal participants.
No.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's not always like that. And
I love the look of confusion.
Yeah, I'm like, no. In straight relationship, this is not talking about Andrew, because
right.
me and him communicate well. But like in the past, right, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's no communication during, and then if you want to get that, you're almost like kind of judged for it. Like
we're interrupting something.
It's like this expectation, like, well, you should just know what to do, or you should just like know how to give a good blowjob, or you should just know. And I'm like, but you're different than this other person I was with. Like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
And then you as a woman feels weird. Like if you do give feedback, then you made them feel bad because it wasn't like super great and amazing. Yeah. And it's just such an awkward, like it's the most awkward thing. I remember a relationship I had prior to being married. He would never communicate during, but then after would like criticize something that I had done. And it sounded like a criticism. It wasn't like can we talk about this? Or I didn't know how to say it. It was like, well, that thing you did like wasn't really that great. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just give me feedback? I'm okay with feedback in the moment. Like, move over here, or
I could take direction well.
Yeah, like direction is the word, right? It's like just gently direct me in another way, and we could have kept it moving. And then when you feel criticized after, well, that feels really shitty.
And that's because it is such a vulnerable, intimate moment.
Yes.
And that to be laying there thinking that you had like a bonding experience with your partner, and for them to go, hey, I wish that you would do this more, or I wish that you, or you know what, when you do that, it actually interrupts my flow. And you're like, I am here too.
Right.
What about my flow?
Okay.
You were like, you had your hand on my hair. I was trying to get out from under this pillow. Like, there's so many different things that it's not taken into account in some heterosexual interactions.
Definitely not. And I think if you talk about it after, it can be fine, because maybe they just didn't know how to bring it up.
Yeah.
That's not the issue I have. It's that
the critiquing. It
feels like a harsh critique. Like, well, I didn't really like that, or it comes off that way, and I'm just like, well, what does that mean? Like, you don't want to do it again, or like it's just so confusing. And so it's nice to hear that, like, with a woman, the communication is like reassuring and affirming and clarifying and all the things that it should be.
So for our listeners, because when I hear just the teachings that you normally, communication about sex and giving feedback is something that's wanted and warranted and things.
Yeah.
So I guess how would someone go about that if they were doing it afterwards? Like how would they tiptoe? Because I find, especially with women to men, there's a lot of men out here who don't know how to fuck, and no one has told them that they don't know how to fuck.
Yeah.
But they tell all their friends. Like, I've been around females all so I know, even in my friend groups, who's good in bed and who isn't, right? And I have that friend, he's still my friend, and he thinks that he blew it out of the park, right? He's never known. But my female friends who've slept with him are just like, no.
Yeah.
So I guess how would you give feedback without being critical?
I mean, I think it just starts off in a really affirming way. Like, hey, you kind of just prepare them, like, can we talk about something? It's maybe a little bit serious, or however you want to, kind of like setting the scene of like, I just have something I want to bring to your attention, I guess, you know, and if
Okay.
they're ready, it's like, okay. And then you just start off affirming like, hey, you know, I like when we get to have sex together. I like being intimate in that way with you. There's something I want to talk to you about that I feel like could be better for the next time for both of us, right? Like, I have this thing that really gives me a lot of pleasure. And maybe you didn't know that. So can I bring it to
Okay.
your attention?
So
Here's
you're
how
like,
I like
this is what I like.
here's what I like. You know what it like?
Could we try
would you be willing
this?
to do that? So it's more of like I like these things and maybe you just didn't know, as opposed to like you suck at that thing.
Yeah. No, I think that is so healthy though.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to phrase it.
Yeah.
And good point, because honestly, a lot of people don't know how to approach those hard conversations.
No.
Even as women in those positions, when we are statistically better communicators, afterwards you don't know what to do. You're like, how do I say that was not my favorite thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you just have to. I think if you can always have that perspective of like, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
They did this thing I thought I would really like. I didn't really like it, but I can't really blame them for that. And so you just approach it with like, I really like this more instead.
Mhm.
Okay.
You know, can we try that or whatever the case is?
Like, that was a great experience. That was like, yeah, I love affirming. Like, that was a great experience. Could I, could I be honest with you? This thing didn't improve that experience. It was already fantastic, and like that didn't improve it for me.
Yeah.
Could we try something different next time?
Yeah.
I like that.
And then you close it around with, I always call it like a compliment.
sandwich?
A compliment
The
sandwich. I do.
sandwich.
Yes, where it's like you're really affirming, you say the thing, and then you close it out with like, I don't want you to think this is a critique of you at all, because it's not. This is just me letting you know what I like, which I feel like is helpful to you. It's helpful to me. And then you ask them like, is there something that I did or that you want me to do?
Yeah.
That I didn't know that you would like. And then you it's like a together conversation.
Let's make our sex life better.
Yeah, and not me like blaming you for something bad that happened, right?
Because
So,
like, if you tell me, I can do research, I can practice, like
right.
we can make it a really fantastic experience for both of
Mhm.
us. So yeah, I love that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, back to so the first girl, did she have experience as well, or y'all both?
No, she did. She had experience, and so it was my first time, like in a safe space, fully intimate with another woman.
Okay.
And she was really reaffirming. It was unlike any of the experiences I had with men.
Interesting.
Uh,
Okay.
we could have like essentially we were like having a conversation while at like having sex. Like, we were talking to
Yeah.
each other about like what's good, what's bad, what's being guiding each other through each other's bodies. And it was just,
No, look at the
Yeah.
flutters.
it was so
Good.
beautiful for
Okay.
me to experience that. And then she did not like penetration.
Okay.
So it was interesting to me, because I thought that was like everybody liked that. And it is not true. That is
Mhm.
not true.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, and like I could learn how to please somebody else in ways that I didn't even know existed. So
And that goes back to what we were just talking about, how like you don't know what you don't know. Like, you assume everyone likes penetration, well, that's not necessarily true. And like also something you said, you know, when like, I mean, men and women do this, but it's like they were good in bed or they weren't good in bed. I always question that, because I'm like, did they engage in sex with you under this assumption of like, well, all women like these things, that's what I'm gonna do, and then you personally are like, that's not really for me.
Mm.
Like, is that why they weren't good?
right.
And do you need to fill them in on what would make it good, and then they can be good? Like, you know what I mean? So sometimes it's like an unfair assessment. You don't want to hear that, like, oh, I heard this guy's really great in bed. And I'm like, but how are we evaluating what
Right.
constitutes good in bed? You know what I mean?
Yeah, people are like, for like an analogy's sake, thinking that everyone drives an automatic,
Uh-huh.
and then one day you get a rental car and it's a stick shift, and you assume that it drives like an automatic, and you don't know how to work it.
Yeah, and then someone's like,
Good
"You're
one.
a shit driver," and you're like, "Well,
Yeah.
I've only ever driven an automatic. I've never,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like that,
Yeah.
right? Like, how can you really say that or evaluate that? To me, if someone is bad in bed, it's someone who does not want to communicate and does not care about what you want.
Mhm.
That's what I would feel like, you know, if I had expressed how I really felt and here's what brings me pleasure, and then the guy was like, I don't really give a shit about that. I'm gonna do what makes me feel good only. That to me would then be like, well, you're not very good.
That-
You're not very good
Yeah,
at it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Can
fuck
I
you.
unfuck him,
Yeah,
actually?
yeah, exactly. But you're not very good at this, you know?
It doesn't count.
Yeah.
It doesn't count if I didn't have fun. So
Yeah.
we'll not be adding it to the list.
Okay. So your first experience was very emotional, as far as like
Yeah.
a big emotional moment.
Very positive, very emotional.
How old were you?
I was 20.
Wow. Was this like shortly after you discovered your attraction to women, or did it take a while before you got to that point?
It did take a while. Because I had like less serious things like making out and first, second base ish with women up to that point. Because I think I was like, when I was about 16, 17, I was like, okay, I can see where this is kind of something that I'm interested in
Yeah.
exploring.
High school years.
Yeah.
And things. Okay.
Like, is it a phase? Who knows? Let's find out though.
Yeah.
Let's find out. Let's explore it. But that was the first time that it was like on an adult level, really like a mature interaction rather than doing it because it's fun and doing it because it makes me feel good.
Okay.
Like I said, being very masculine in that way where well, not masculine, very much like the men that I've dated, where I was like, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it to make me feel good.
Girl. I mean,
Yeah.
sex can be that way.
But that
No
is
worries,
true.
Yeah.
As long as you're on the same page about it, right?
That's true. Yes.
Mhm.
Like,
Accurate.
we're just doing this for funsies. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just because we can.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you this question, and I don't want you to think that you can answer it wrong because you can't. But I am curious from someone who is bisexual, what would you consider sex with a woman?
For me, sex with a woman is anything. For me, it's anything beyond fingers, because fingers with that's where the likenesses stop for me.
Okay.
Is once we've moved from our hands to exploring each other with our mouths or using toys or anything like that. Like I said, penetration usually is where my line is like now we have crossed the bridge into
Okay.
sex
Okay. No,
as
that's
I
good.
know it, right?
Because it's different depending on who you talk to, right?
Yeah.
And I've noticed, especially in the queer community, where you might think that you had sex with someone, but
They don't
they had sex with you. So I've noticed that before. So I was just wondering, I wanted your opinion.
My mind is so blown by that. Like I could have been adding like just thinking about my partners in the past. I could have been either over or under thinking this. Like I was not aware. That's crazy that I maybe was not as conscientious or thoughtful about how they felt about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, but it's one of the things in the queer
That's cool,
community
though.
that's just different. We have different lines, different levels. And
But you know, straight people do too. Like if like let's say like I just had oral sex with someone, I wouldn't be surprised if the guy was like, "We didn't have sex." You know what I mean? Like without
Absolutely.
penetration, it's like we didn't fuck, and I'm like, "Well, but we did." No, we didn't.
Because
You
that's what
know?
my head that's
Yeah.
where my brain is like, no, if
I just
we
gave you a blowy.
yeah, I gave you a
Okay.
blowy, like no, that's not
So it's different. Oral sex with
Uh-huh.
men is not sex for you,
Yeah.
but oral sex with women is sex for
Yeah.
you. So there is a-
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So with that, I really want to know, in your opinion, because we heard the first, but now I'm assuming you've had multiple experiences with men. Okay. What would you consider the differences? So go me like how do men differ in the bedroom versus women in your experience? Because you date masculine women too. So
it's interesting because I think that the majority of the women that I've dated would be like a switch.
Okay.
They go back and forth depending on where I am in my energy and where the evening has led us. Like that's what I do love about having sex with women is it is constantly like adjusting and flowing with each other. And with men, with the right man, that where that line of communication is open, it is also very similar.
Okay.
But yeah, with masculine women, I do like that when I'm in my feminine energy, that it's a take charge moment. And that's also what I like about men
Okay.
is take charge. Tell me what to do for the love of God. I don't want to have a thought in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
So you like taking the submissive role a little
Yes,
bit. Okay.
I do.
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've already kind of answered. This actually is kind of the last question I had on my list. We have like our little list, but
I love that.
we've had a lot of good questions, I think. But
Yes.
the one on my list that I'm thinking of, that again I think you've already kind of spoken to a little bit, but how would you describe the communication difference between men and women, and not just like even within sex, but like in dating, communicating
Oh, yeah,
about
that's a good question.
emotions, communicating about about whatever. What would you say is the difference?
I would say that with women it is a lot of unspoken communication, and that sometimes if I'm not interested in understanding, I'm committed to misunderstanding and I'm not looking between the lines, then it's easier for us to argue.
Really
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't want to, I know what you're saying without saying it, and I don't want to hear it. So I'm committed to that miscommunication.
Okay.
With men, ooh, this is gonna sound bad, but with men, it's easy because they are very like surface level people.
Yeah.
And
No, I've heard that.
yeah.
That's a very common experience. Yes.
like their subtlety goes nowhere with them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to communicate and just be straightforward and go, hey, could you fucking stop that? That's really annoying. I'm not getting the
All right, silence treatment.
Yes!
Now you-
Yeah.
No,
The passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Yes.
like slamming things in the kitchen or anything like that. If they're mad about something, either they'll be mad about it and just like handle it themselves, or they will express that they're mad, and you're like, yeah, I can tell.
So was there any, when you started dating women, was there any like unexpected surprises or things you weren't like anticipating that came out of that? Like, because obviously two women together, that's one thing I did have to navigate, is the fact that you have to read between the lines. I can't go things that, if you tell me that you don't like something, I actually have to not only hear the words, but I have to listen to the tone, the body language, and everything, right? So
And like the idea of saying something once.
yes.
If I say it once, and we're just talking about like little things around the house or like around your home or in your habits, it's if I've said it once and it doesn't change, I'm not going to bring it up again, but I will continue to be upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
God, we're women.
Right.
Crazy. Same way.
But with men in that scenario is you have to tell them everything.
All the time.
Well, yeah, I'm putting on my couples therapist hat here for a second. I think like men and women both have work to do here to like meet in the middle. I do think women could be more clear, because I hear that in my practice. Something will happen and they just kind of expect their partner to know, and I'm like, but you never at any point made that clear to them, right? Or you never like explicitly said the thing. But also men, and I'm stereotyping here. I know this isn't like everybody, but I will hear from men like, well, they didn't say anything. And like they'll be like in the corner like crying. Well, they didn't say they were upset. I mean, that's an extreme example, right? But it's like, okay, come on. Like some things you can do a little bit of work to read the subtleties and safely assume that they're upset with you. And you should inquire about that. But I'll hear like, well, they could have come to me. They never said anything.
They didn't say anything.
Well, they've given you the cold shoulder for 3 days. Like, you didn't think to at least ask or point out, like, you're giving me the cold shoulder. That's kind of uncomfortable. What's going on? Right? Like, sometimes it's okay to, like, do that. But then on the same token, like, women sometimes can be, the passive aggressive, or like, well, you should just know. Did y'all ever watch Modern Family?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There's that episode where Claire was really upset and Phil doesn't know why. And she is just digging in her heels like, you should know why. I'm not going to tell you. You should already know. And he just goes about his day where he's like, I don't know. Like, I'm replaying everything. I can't think of what it is. In those moments, it's like, just say the thing, right? Like, anyways, that's my little...
No,
girl,
I relate to that all day. There is a level when you decide to date women, for anyone out there who's going to date women, there's a level of mind reading that is
Mhm.
expected of you, like at all
Mhm.
times, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So especially with two females together, it's almost required for you to not even hear the words, but listen to everything else. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like be
Mhm.
super aware of your like what is your partner's normal demeanor,
yep.
the slight changes in like shifts in body language.
Yeah.
And I personally I really love it, but I do feel like that is something that is intuitive
Yeah.
to us as women as a whole.
Yes.
And what really surprised me about most about dating women was I still had to ask. Like we didn't have like when it came to the point where it was not a nonverbal conversation and I was getting the cold shoulder, I'm super communicative.
Good.
If I have a problem, everyone's gonna know about it. Well,
Mhm.
I mean, depends on the problem. But, I'm gonna be vocal about it because I
Yeah.
want help. I want to problem solve this. I want it fixed
Yeah.
because I would like to go back to my normal state of being.
Yes.
I
Uh
like that.
so like digging at someone else is not something that I really enjoy doing
Mhm.
because I want people to have that space to process their emotions and feel what they feel, then come to me to the safe place that I've created for you in my life
Mhm.
and feel safe sharing it with me. And then we ask, do we want problem solving? Do we want solutions? Or do we just want to
Yeah.
sit with it?
I like that. Look at you being such a woman. That's good.
I've been doing it for a while, so
Hey.
but that was shocking that sometimes I still like I had to go to them and we couldn't have like an open dialogue. I just falsely assumed that we would communicate like best friends all the time.
Yeah.
And that's based on my relationship templates, right? Based on my friendships with women, because men, like we talked about earlier, you have sex with men and you're probably not going to stay friends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you have sex with women, it's more likely that you will stay friends with them.
Yeah.
So,
That's normal. Yeah.
because that is like a
That shocked Lyndsey whenever when we first started.
Yeah.
I was like, that never happens in my world. Never.
I'm still friends with, I think, every woman that I had like connected with, like on Facebook or like we had exchanged numbers, whatever it may be. Um, all of the women that I was intimate with that I had done that kind of connection, still friends
Girl, yeah.
to this day.
My friends group, we're a slutty friends group. We've slept with each other and everything, and everyone's still, and now everyone's married, but
Oh,
and we're still
I
all
love
really
that
good
though.
friends.
I love that.
So just to kind of wrap up this podcast, I do want to give the audience a little bit of advice. So if from a bisexual woman who's been, how old are you now? If you don't mind me asking.
30.
Hey, all right. We don't have to put that if you're not.
No, I
comfortable
love
with
it.
Okay, okay. So yeah, you've had experience with women for now 10 years, at least sexually. So I'm curious, or not curious. I want you to kind of give advice to someone who is just now starting to question their sexuality.
Mm.
What would be a little piece of advice that you wish you knew before coming out, before dating women?
I would have to say, know that there's no such thing as wrong. If you're doing no harm to anyone else or to yourself, there's no such thing as wrong. Um, you can explore and feel safe and non-committal. There is no, just because you do something doesn't mean it's forever. Find someone you really trust and love and discuss it with them. Explore, um, reach out to people in the community, number one,
That's a good one.
for
Yeah.
sure. Um, and know that no matter what you do, you will be supported, whether it be by your family or by your new family,
Chosen family.
chosen
yes.
family.
Yes.
And there's no commitment when it comes to your sexual preferences or sexual identity. It can ebb and flow like a river,
I
and
like
trust yourself.
Oh, that's great advice.
That's great
Yeah,
advice. That is
so good.
literally
I'm gonna have to
really
save that.
good. I'm probably gonna like shorten that and put it on like a TikTok or something. That was really good advice.
That's great.
Okay, and then the last question that I'm gonna close this out with, because I ask all of our guests because I'm really curious. So just to give some context, this is a sex positive podcast, right? And the things that I've learned about sex positivity is there's 3 huge pillars. The first one being consent. As long as there's 2 consenting adults, we're okay. Second one being the fact that we're inclusive as far as relationship styles and identities, and then the third one, which I want to drive home every single time, is that we preach sexual education, comprehensive sexual education that's inclusive for everybody, right? Yes. So with that being said, I want to know what your sexual education was. I want to know both at home, like how your parents approached it, and I also want to know your formal sex education if you got it in school.
I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
So there wasn't with my parents, there wasn't any hiding of sex. Like, it is natural, it's normal, it's healthy. Everybody does it. In church, it was the whole, when you have sex, it's like this tinfoil crumpled together. It was awful. Yeah, and you try and separate the tinfoil now. You can't. You've ripped it, and that's your value as a person. Is now it's shredded, and you're like,
what?
Oh, Lord.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Tinfoil? You're the first one I've ever heard you say that.
But Catholic, on brand.
On brand. The guilt.
So you're a part of your sexual education came from church.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And then in school was honestly, my middle school did a great job of teaching us like just basics of this is this is how you use a condom. This is how you put them on. This type of condom can be used for female to female relationships. These condoms are for male and female and male male. And it was literally biological as well. So it was really straight on to the point of like, you guys are like 13. You're gonna start feeling things, and they were.
What city was this? What state?
Can you believe it? Texas.
What?
Yeah.
In Texas, you had that. Wow, that was not my experience.
I know, really.
Whatsoever, no.
No, that's not the normal experience for
Wow.
middle schoolers. Not here. No.
Maybe mine was just an odd one out.
Progressive school or something.
I honestly just think that they were underfunded, and the teachers were like, "No, these kids are finger banging each other in the hallways. We need to do something about this."
That could be it though, because to keep funding, you have to do things the way the state wants you to do it, and the way the state wants you to do it is like abstinence only teachings. So I guess if you're a school and you're just like, well, fuck it, we're just gonna do what we need to do. Yeah. They're gonna give you the real teachings.
Well, I think they still taught abstinence. They were like, abstinence. You don't do it, but if you're gonna, here.
Okay.
No, I mean, okay, that's better. Yeah, my experience in Texas, I had reproductive education instead of sexual education. This was more in elementary, so I believe I was 4th grade, maybe 5th grade, and they taught us basically what was going to happen as far as the changing in our bodies. For the guys, they talked about morning wood, which is a very interesting thing for me.
I have never seen that happen, just so everybody knows. That is a myth for me.
But I never received any sexual education in middle school. And that's when I feel like I had peers who were having sex around that time, even though we were a little young. And then in high school, I've been told now, so I got to correct for the podcast. Apparently, my school did offer sexual education because my best friend went through it and we went to the same high school together. But maybe I just missed that class. Maybe it was just one class. I have no idea. But other than 4th, 5th grade, I never received any sexual education other than that. So yeah, but my mother was I knew what sex was at a very young age. So
yeah,
my mother was very.
My parents were big into if you can stay up to watch a movie, you can watch the movie no matter your age. So I saw a lot of things happen,
girl.
And my parents were like, and I was like, no, I'm good actually. I don't know what's happening, and I'm okay with that. I'm good with it. And then when you get older, I'm like, what happens there when they're doing this scene? What are they doing? And that's when it was explained. My mom was like, man, that took a while. I was wondering when you were going to get curious. And I was like, I was in it for the plot, Gwen. I was in it for the plot.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, actually that's pretty much all I have. On theme of this episode, if you guys in the comments just want to leave me your experience if you're bisexual. Was this about similar, or if you have dated both men and women, I want to know what you think is the differences between the two.
Yeah, same.
Mhm.
And just like and subscribe and keep letting us know what topics you want to hear in the future.
Yeah,
We're
girl,
always
this was
recording.
great.
We're always looking for new
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. Sorcha, thank you so much for coming on. I think everything you said, I mean, it was like kind of a learning experience for me, and I hope it was for the listeners. And I think your advice was great. So,
Yeah. I mean, I learned post-nut clarity now. So,
hey,
hey.
you got
And cunt
you got a
punting.
new term.
Cunt
Yeah.
punting. I love it. So good.
No, I appreciate you asking me to be here. To have representation is so important, and it honestly always slips my mind to do it. To be like, I stand with you as a bisexual
Mhm.
woman. I always forget that I needed someone to say that to me. So
Same, girl. Yes, representation is very important. I'm glad you're here.
yeah, thank you.
All right, I love it. Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in. Like we said, like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear. And again, we are Sex Positivity Unfiltered. And remember to stay curious and fuck politeness.